I'm Scott Allen Miller, and on today's Sam IT, we're going to talk about the rather complicated topic that shouldn't be of how to define success in IT, or how to define success within an IT project or endeavor. Now, this is something that every company struggles with, and it's not just within IT. This applies to everything in business, but IT is especially difficult. Traditionally, we have a problem that businesses have a tendency to look at IT projects or IT endeavors as a simple yes or no, a binary success or failure, and we define this in a really strange way. Let me give an example. So, if a company wants to implement a new email system, or let's just imagine we're a company with Greenfield and we don't have email, they go to their IT department and say, we need email. Go out and get us an email system, build us an email system, provide us with email as an IT department. Great. That makes sense. IT is not going to push back on that. We don't need a detailed explanation. Why do you need email? Because it's sensible. We can just assume it's a good call. So we're going to go ahead and implement that email system. We'll assume in other circumstances there may be pushback. Do you really need the thing you're asking for? But email is easy. So we go out and we implement that email. We come back to the business and say, here's your email. The business logs in, sends an email, receives an email, checkbox, success. And now we have a successful IT project. But do we? How do we really know? IT is a business endeavor. It is not a binary simply get something done. It's not like I need a hole in the wall patched and either it's patched or it's not patched. These things are very complicated. Does this email system properly meet the needs of the business's need for email? Is it efficient for how the business works? Is it properly secure for the business's security needs? Is it priced accordingly? Was it rolled out in a good amount of time? All of these things should be evaluated as part of success. The way that we think about it is as if email was not a foregone conclusion. And I don't mean from a need perspective, I mean from a success perspective. Was there really a contemplation that maybe the IT department would be unable to deliver email as a product to the business? I mean, let's face it, even if you couldn't build it yourself, which any IT department probably can, at least given enough time, it's not that hard. Yeah, maybe you have to buy Exchange, but you can also roll out MailCow. Even if you have no budget, you can roll out email without too much effort. Even in 2003, when we had to build it by hand, it wasn't that big of a deal to roll out your own products if you needed to. But assuming none of those were done and all you did was go to Microsoft 365 or Google or Zoho and click, yes, I'd like to sign up, here's my credit card, boom, you have email. Sure, there's a few steps to fill out. I got to tell it my URL and stuff. I've got to fill in a DNS with its verification code. It's just a few steps. You don't even need IT to do it. You could do this with the receptionist and a little bit of spare time. No big deal. So that companies tend to judge most IT projects by simply a did they deliver the thing or not is weird, because that's based on the assumption that there was a really good chance they weren't going to deliver the product at all. The need was simply not going to be met. So that makes no sense. So how do we actually evaluate? Well, it needs to be based on the cost that it actually costs and the risk of that success. I want to give an analogy because I think this helps explain what this would be like in another scenario. You go to a person, we'll assume an adult, not a child, because a child, there may actually be a chance of success. You hand an unlimited amount of money, a credit card, maybe not an unlimited credit card, but you know what I mean, a credit card to an adult who works for you. And you say, I need you to go to that store down the street. You may choose the store down the street, but any one of the stores down the street and buy me a loaf of bread. They go to the store, they come back with a loaf of bread. And you say, wow, that's a success because you brought me a loaf of bread. That makes no real sense because that's not what matters. You know, any adult honestly trying to get you a loaf of bread with a credit card in a place that takes credit cards is going to come back with a loaf of bread. What you need to know are the things we didn't mention here. How long did it take them? Were they gone for the 15 minutes it takes to walk down, buy some bread, and walk back? Or were they gone for a month? They didn't even come to work. They've just been gone out shopping the universe of bread. Did all the things you want to make with the bread go bad in the time you're waiting for the bread to arrive? Did they spend $2 on a loaf of bread or $200 on a loaf of bread? Did they buy like an appropriate, is it even a market price for bread? Or did that credit card get rung up for a whole bunch of things that don't look like bread prices? Did the bread come back with a good bread that you like or that is appropriate for your food eating needs? Or is it some weird bread that you don't want? Is it pumpernickel and you just wanted to make grilled cheese sandwiches? Actually, that might be tasty. Ignore that. But you get the point. Maybe they came back with something completely wrong for what you were looking for. Did they ask you what you needed? Did they set some kind of business needs? No. So if they did any of those things while buying bread, and you said, were they successful as bread shoppers? Were they successful as bread and carbohydrate consultants? Because that's what your IT department is for your email or other IT needs. They're your consulting department. They're a business function there to protect you from bad decisions and to make sure you're getting the right value and asking the right questions. Because legitimately, the business doesn't know what they need to ask about for email, let alone an ERP, right? That's IT's job to at least ask the right questions. The business may have to answer them, of course. And so we would define success in an employee hired to go get bread in that they got a good price on a good bread and got it in a reasonable amount of time without using unnecessary resources. You don't want to find out that they took the credit card and hired a bread buying firm who gets a kickback and is like, well, if you give us $200, we'll go get the bread for you and you don't have to ask any of those questions and we'll do all the work. You just sit outside and we'll actually buy you the beer and the sandwich you're going to eat while we do the work, because you're giving us an unlimited credit card and we'll pay for all of your luxury and we'll do the work. They go out and spend 50 cents on some old moldy bread, come back and say, hey, it meets your requirements. That's all you told us. Sorry. But at least enjoy your beer and your sandwich, and we'll just charge you this $200. We've made $190 of markup because we gave you an $8 sandwich and a 50-cent piece of bread, and we did all the work for $1.50. We made $190 just for making your life so cushy that you didn't have to go to the store. That sounds insane when you're talking about going to get a loaf of bread, and yet that's exactly what we find in a lot of IT projects. Someone will go out and hire someone else who does not do a good job and will mark it as a success because at the end of the day, the bread arrived, the email turned on, but did you pay a good price? Why are you spending so much? We need to evaluate the whole thing. So when we're looking at email, this is just an example. This should apply to like everything in IT, right? First, we should always be asking, do we even need the thing in the first place? But once we know we need it, we should always be trying to deliver it a good solution at a good price in a good amount of time at an appropriate amount of risk. That doesn't mean that some solutions aren't going to be expensive. That doesn't mean that some solutions aren't going to be risky. Some simply are, and that's just how life is. That's part of just business, right? We're going to try opening a new restaurant in a place where no one's ever opened a restaurant before. It's a huge risk because we don't know from market evaluation if anybody there will go to a restaurant. Maybe there's a reason why there's no restaurant there already. Maybe it's because nobody thought of it. Maybe it's because 100 places have tried and failed in the past and we just don't know. So we're taking a big risk because we can't evaluate how all the other restaurants in the area are doing. That's the nature of business. You take risks. If there were no risks, everyone would already do it, just make magic money. You can't. You make your money in business based off of the risk. So it's fine that IT projects are going to be risky most of the time, but they should not be unnecessarily risky, right? Did you go out and get an email system that you were sure was going to work? Did you know what the price was going to be? How does it compare to other things on the market? Are you just looking at what do other people do and just doing that, not really doing any evaluation for your business's needs? And let's face it, most people make bad decisions. So if you look at what most people do, that's almost guaranteed to be a bad answer. Right? Most businesses fail. Don't copy most businesses. Intentionally copying expected failure is intentional failure, also known as sabotage, right? That's not something you should be doing. It's fine to look at what everyone does and use that as well, we should at least consider what everyone does because, maybe they chose something right, because that does happen too. Don't rule it out just because most people do it, but be suspect. But evaluate success based on, did you beat market expectation? Did you lower risk? So in the email, are you at average price? Are you below average price? Determine what average price is or what a reasonable starting baseline is. For enterprise email, the normal number that we use is $1 per user per month. Are you spending more than $1? Someone better be able to answer why. And there's lots of good reasons why you would. Right? It's not to say that it's wrong to spend more than $1. It's just that if you're spending more than $1, you better, because that's the baseline for really high quality enterprise, fully supported email solutions, completely covered, everything included, $1. If you're spending $2, why are you spending double? There's better be some value to it. Like I said, easily there is. but there better actually be there, because I will find places that are spending $8 on email and have no idea why they would spend over $1. And then it turns out they don't have the quality product that you would have gotten for $1. And then you're like, well, so you're spending 800% the market baseline and not receiving the market baseline product level? Why? What decision went into this? Instantly, from a business perspective, obviously that should be marked as a failure. Not because they didn't deliver email, of course they did, but because they didn't do a reasonable level and beat the baseline. That's where we really have to mark success and failure. Can you do better than baseline? Because you don't need an IT department to do baseline. You can just do a little bit of casual research and see what the baseline is and do that. That's not hard. And sometimes baseline's all you need. Having an IT department that comes in and says, look, I can't really beat the baseline without taking on a whole bunch of risks, and that's not really beating it, that's just changing our variables. So we can talk about those things, but the baseline's a baseline for a reason. In many cases, the baselines are quite good. Fine, have an IT department that is evaluating that for you and protecting you from bad decision making. That's fine. But if all you're going to do is try to meet baseline, you need nothing for that. So your IT department had better be able to at least deliver you a baseline without too much of a problem. You should not be looking at delivering baseline as some wild level of success that you can't believe they're able to do. You would have been happy at 8 times the price, taking 3 months to implement what could have been done in an afternoon. Email is a great example. Company of 100 people, all you need is email. I can have a solution for you that does 100 people for $100 a month and implement it in about an hour. That's fine, right? Is it going to meet your special needs? No, it's not even going to consider your special needs, but it's going to give you a quality email with good security and full support for $100 a month with no overhead of thinking about it or decisions. That's a baseline. A good company, really successful IT is going to dig into that and say, is there a reason why we may want to take on a little bit more support and not have support from a third-party vendor because maybe we can lower our cost? Great, that's a discussion to have. Are there special features we may want to have that this doesn't come with that might make a difference for our business, and maybe they're worth more money or more effort or a lowering of support or whatever? Great, let's evaluate those things. This is where IT can play a really big value to your organization, taking you past the baseline. And maybe they'll do all that evaluation and say, nah, none of these things quite make sense. The baseline is the way to go for a reason. And with really heavy commodity services like email, DNS hosting, web hosting, baseline is generally pretty good. If you're getting to enterprise baseline, not consumer baseline, not what hobby businesses use, not what consumers use, what enterprises would do. That baseline is often pretty practical. And that's why it's a starting point. That's why it's a baseline. You need to evaluate as a business, and this doesn't just go for IT, this is for everything in business. Are you considering success where someone dramatically falls short of doing their job at all? Could you have gotten a better result without having that department? Right? If you're going to pay 800% the baseline, you're not going to get baseline quality. You did not need an IT department to do that. You didn't need a reseller to do that. You didn't need anybody. You could have screwed that up so dramatically all on your own. In fact, how could you have screwed it up that badly on your own? That almost always requires somebody doing something a little bit nefarious, somebody getting a favor from somebody or doing a favor for somebody or getting a kickback or having a bone to pick with some vendor, and so choosing some other vendor based on emotional reasons that you as a business owner probably aren't going to have. There's a need to evaluate everything you do in a business on a reasonable level of success, not can you open a business. If you're a restaurant business, you don't ask, can my staff open a restaurant? You ask, can my staff open and operate a restaurant that performs at or better than market expectation? That's a reasonable level of success. Now, if they do all these things and they still fail, you can evaluate and say, wow, there was a bunch of things that were out of their control. They failed anyway. Sometimes that happens. We take a risk. It turns out nobody in this market likes chicken wings. We had no idea. We had no way to know. Fine. It's okay to hard fail and still be a business success or to be an IT success because you exceeded expectations in hindsight. But that's what you need to be evaluating against. Not did they open a restaurant. Anybody given enough money can just open a restaurant and fail as a business. That's easy. In the rest of business, you would never, if someone said, are you a successful businessman? You don't say, yes, I filed my LLC paperwork, therefore I'm a successful businessman. That's ridiculous. No one would accept that definition. What they mean is, did you, with the amount of startup capital that you had, with the amount of resources you had, did you put them in and make more money than you would have just putting that money in a mutual fund, right? That's a marginally successful business. And lots of businesses, and presumably almost everyone I'm speaking to in this video, is going to be that kind of business today. That's a successful business, making more money than you would have had you done nothing, right? It is not, can I successfully file an LLC and legally be able to claim in a court, do you own a business? I do. It does nothing. It makes no money. It has never made money. It doesn't even do anything, but I have paperwork and by law, I'm a business. That's not what anyone means by success. We all know what success means in other contexts. IT is not an exception. It is just part of the business. Treat its successes the way you would treat successes in the operational division, in the finance division, in the legal division, right? Did we win a court case? Yes, we won. But we spent 10 times as much as we should have on lawyers because we kept hiring incompetent lawyers and they overcharged us and we didn't evaluate their cost and we didn't care. No, that's failure in the legal department. Sure, you won the court case, but overall it's a legal failure, right? Don't let IT get away without being evaluated based on their actual successes and failures. And it's important that we don't refer to these things in that way internally because it creates a culture of not caring about success. It's really easy to start saying, look at all these successful projects we've had in the past. Did you evaluate them? Were they successful? Because the average company that I work with in IT, when I come in and do consulting, they will constantly tell me about all the successful things that they've done. I say, this has lost you $500,000 over its lifespan, some system that they've designed and put in. And they'll say, but it worked for us. I say, how do you define it worked for you? Because anybody can provide a system that does this thing. The question is, did they provide one that protects you monetarily and protects you from risk? The risk. So let's give an example. Someone puts in a backup system and we evaluate an industry baseline and say, okay, a backup system appropriate for this company may cost $200 a month. Excellent. And do they need backup? Yeah, we'll just assume you need backup. Like email, it's pretty much a foregone conclusion you're going to want backups. Great. $200 a month, and it should be able to protect you in case of total failure. You can restore from this backup. That is a reasonable baseline for the example corporation. Now we find out in 10 years that they've been paying $1,000 a month and everything's been okay. And you say to them, wow, you lost $800 a month for 10 years, which is a lot of money. It's like $100,000. And they say, no, we were successful because we never lost data. That's not a good guide of success because you lost $800 that you didn't need to lose for no reason. You didn't gain anything from it. And we can tell how bad this is because there's a piece of the story I haven't told yet. At no point during that 10 years did they need to use the backup. They just knew it was there and protecting them, which gave them some peace of mind at night. And the extra $800 they spent every night, we'll just say that made them sleep a little bit easier too. For whatever reason, throwing away money makes people sleep easier. But the thing we didn't tell you is no one ever implemented a backup system at all. For $200, you should have had an enterprise class backup that would fully protect your company against any reasonable outage. There's always an exception. But in most cases, you could not put a backup in whatsoever and no one would notice because the average company only needs to go to backup. Sure, and big enterprises, they may use it all the time as part of their workflow. A normal, small or medium business is only going to use their backup once, maybe twice a decade. Easily far less than that. So in many cases, you could not even implement the system. You could not put RAID drives in. You could not put a backup in. You could just take your chances. And maybe not 9 out of 10 times, but at least 6 out of 10 times, if you're evaluating purely on success, they will mark you as a success on a project you never even delivered and overbilled by hundreds of percentages over the market value. Once we start looking at it that way, that the very thing you decided was a success may not even have existed, that's how easy it is to see that this idea of marking things as success when they so far fall short of a baseline is crazy. So that's the takeaway. I want you to think about how you can rethink evaluating what is success, what is failure, in IT and in business and in life. Did you get a good deal? I went to the store. They had a sale on shirts. I bought 3 shirts. Did you need those shirts? What's the total you should have spent? Was the sale real or just a lowered price that was inflated ahead of time to give you an emotional feeling of, oh, I failed at shopping? Think about it. It affects everything you do. Reevaluate what you consider success and failure. Thanks for joining me. Like and subscribe. Leave your comments below. Thanks for holding on as we brought the Sam IT channel back. I'm excited to be back. We're going to have a lot of content for you guys really soon. I want to see lots of discussion down there. I do get a fair amount on the channel, but let's ramp this up. And please share this with people that you know, because that would be very much appreciated. And if you're hanging out this far, thank you so much. I have written a book, Linux Administration Best Practices. It is available on Amazon from Pact Publishing. It would mean a lot to me if you would consider purchasing and leaving a nice review and promoting the book, because that is the big project that I've been doing while I've been gone from Sam IT. So that has been something very close to my heart and something I've wanted to do for a very long time. So I'm quite excited to be able to bring that to you and have that under my belt now and be able to share it with everyone. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you next time.